So thank you for all your support over the years, not just now. But I come here. This session was planned to be a dialogue between myself and my successor, with a sense of what have we achieved, what are the messages that I would pass on, and the encouragement that I would pass on to my successor, and what are the warning signals that I need to share. But in the absence of having actually got someone in post at the moment, what I thought I'd do was just reflect on the 7 years. So, I was first drawn to this role because most of my portfolio of activity is focused around leadership and governance, and I've been particularly anxious over 10, 15 years that what we saw in the whole health sector was a drift away from the primacy of professionalism and the freedom that professionals have to exercise professional judgment in the context of drawing upon the wealth of the whole profession, and that's slowly slipping away as the likes of CQC and other external organisations introduce more and more rules about the way you should behave and conform into best practice, and removing some of those freedoms, no longer valuing that professional judgment, which is a fundamental part of being a professional. So it was the fact that here was an opportunity to take part actively in that dialogue, in the balance between professional judgment and organisational competence, that drew me to it. And as you've heard in the conversations that we've had today, the distinction between HCPC and welcoming the professional judgment element, and CQC working within a rules-based environment, which is can't survive when you end up with lack of clarity within the rules. That drawing to this role provided an excellent opportunity to play in that space and to speak out in that space. But that was the beginning of a 7-year journey, and what I've discovered over the 7 years is that audiology is something that doesn't half get you by the throat, and draws you in to something deep and profound. And I've realized only in relatively recent times that one of the problems with audiology is that most audiologists are practical, hands-on, and I can't imagine the fulfillment, the personal fulfillment, that practicing audiologists feel on a day-to-day basis as you encounter and change people's lives. And that is such a profound consideration that when we start to look at how do we get stronger leadership in audiology, you have to be prepared to let go of that hands-on, emotional, entangled, sucking-in experience that makes you what you are. And in order to be a broad champion leader for audiology, you've got to be willing to let go of some of those individual encounters and start looking at the population issues and the national issues, not just the individual one-on-one encounters. And that, going right back to what Alison said this morning, that's a really tough challenge in letting go of what many of you value. And so where I've perhaps abusively said audiologists wear their victimhood with pride because it is such a victim profession, I don't think I would coin that phrase today, because it isn't that you're wearing victimhood with pride. You're putting up with victimhood in order to have the pride of those individual encounters, it seems to me, as I would put it today. But what that leads the profession is bereft of leadership that's willing to take on the fact that 2/3 of the people in this country whose lives are inhibited by their limitations on hearing, 2/3 of those people get no attention whatsoever. And that has sucked me in and held me in this role for a long time. And there is nobody there that is having those conversations that say, we've got to take seriously not just the one-on-one encounters, but we've got to take seriously that 2/3 of the people whose hearing loss is causing them to be less engaged in their working environment, less engaged in their family environment, beginning the downward slopes in all sorts of loss of fulfillment, and nobody cares. And I've had that conversation, the last 3 years particularly, I've seen an increasingly strong focus from HCPC that they want to get into that leadership and ambitious world of encouraging professions to excel in everything. Bear in mind that a regulator's role is to set the minimum standards, and a professional body's role is to set the standards of excellence to which everyone should aspire. And we have that partnership together. And it's great to see that HCPC is starting to work to understand. But the truth is they do not understand the complexities and folly of the world of audiology, which you would never design a profession to work this way. And so at the end of my 7 years, I'm going to be leaving a bunch of unfinished stuff. And I'm going to be leaving that bunch of unfinished stuff with quite a lot of chagrin, I think, because it still needs to be addressed. And we're in a world of change, and although Alison focused on the fact that we fear change, what COVID has taught me is we don't fear change at all, we fear uncertainty. We fear uncertainty, and change is the biggest cause of uncertainty until you get something hitting you that actually makes the steady state uncertain. And the changes that we see, we've got technology coming along like crazy that's going to make the world different, that's going to start introducing self-care into those 2/3 that are not getting any, and then the whole profession needs to start thinking about not only how do we bring people into care, but how do we bring people beyond the horizon of self-care into professionally supported care. That's a change, that's a dramatic change. Technology will be a big thing. We've talked long and hard about the college to create a stronger, more powerful voice for audiology. But against all of that, my biggest regret is that we haven't broken the back of the stupidity that there is a public sector pathway for audiology and a private sector pathway for audiology, which are a complete waste of scarce resources. The most important change that we can bring is to adopt something equivalent to an optician model in which there is a combined public and private sector pathway in which the limited public funds are not available universally, they're available to those who genuinely need it. Because 90% of audiology is actually about social care and lifestyle. It's not about health. And we confuse all those things. So more than anything, I would encourage my successor and the council and all of you to work hard to unite the public and private pathways for audiology care. Because without that, the 2/3 of the population with hearing loss that is limiting their freedom in life, limiting their fulfillment, will not have any voice on their behalf. And that saddens me as I leave. Much as I enjoy the great things that we have done, that's my finishing note, and I've probably exceeded my time by a few minutes there, so I hand over to Elizabeth to do whatever Elizabeth wants to do. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, David.